Harihi Om. Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Tat Purushaya Vitmahe. Vakratundhaya Dhimahi. Danho Dhandi Prachodaya. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gajananam Mahakayam Vignarajam Vinayagam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarva Lokhanam Visajheva Varoginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Harihi Om. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sarirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Munina Pathanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shanga Chakrasidharinam Sahasrasirisham Devam Pranamami Patanjalim. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Yogeshwararpanamastu Nyada Shranam Nasti. Sai Ram, welcome to yet another journey into the wonders of the Yoga Sutras. Last week, we went into the third book and we finished 6 verses. So today we're continuing with another 14 verses and we'll reach verse 20 of book 3, right? And then we will complete week 3 in a couple of weeks and then hit the 4th book, Kaivalyapada. That's what will take you from the state of subconscious. See, all this time, we have been moving from a state of absolute lack of consciousness to some awareness of consciousness. And then in the 2nd book, we looked at consciousness. In the 3rd book, we are trying to move from subconscious to from the conscious to the subconscious. And in the final book, will take us from the subconscious to the superconscious. Right? That is the journey of the Yoga Sutras. So verse 7 starts by Patanjali Maharishi referring to what I spoke to you last week about samyama. So here he says, Trayam antarangam purvebhyaha. Trayam antarangam purvebhyaha. Trayam means 3. Tray means 3, right? Antarangam means that which is inside. That which is inside is your emotions, your psychological thoughts, your feeling, all of that. Purvebhya means that which has already been mentioned previously. So basically, what this Trayam Antarangam Purvebhya means, in reference to the early stages of yoga, for Ashtanga Yoga, in reference to the early stages of yoga, the 5 stages, these 3 stages go beyond the physiology and go into the psychology. This is what he's saying, right? And the 3 that he's referring to, the Trayam that he's referring to, Trayam Antarangam. He says this 3 is not external anymore. It is now internal. So what's he talking about? He's talking about Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. All the other 5 is physical. And this, you must go beyond the physical level into your psyche or your psychological organs should start working, right? So your yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and pratyahara, 5 stages, is all very practical, very physical. Yama, niyama, physical moral observances, spiritual discipline, and then asana is sitting in the posture. That's all physical. Pranayama is a physical act of breathing. Pratyahara is the physical act of concentrating. Then only when you achieve these 5 physical stages, then and only then you can sit and try and do dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. I mean, you don't have to do samadhi. You can't do samadhi. Samadhi is an achievement. It is an attainment of a state when the other preceding stages have been done to the T, right? So if you do dharana and dhyana perfectly well, the end result of that is samadhi. So samadhi cannot be done. It can only be achieved. It can only be attained, right? Therefore, he is saying, Trayam antarangam purvebhya. Remember that the 5 preceding stages are physical, but the last 3 are mental. Okay, mental stages. Have to go within. Then he goes on to say in the next verse, Tadapi, however, bahirangam nirbijasya. Tadapi means that even, right? Even that. Bahiranga means, bahir anga means external part. Nirbijasya. Right? He says, even that initial mastership of the 3 stages is external in reference to meditation. When you say meditation, it means you must sit and you must do. So he's saying a lot of them look at these 3 as an external form of reference, right? But he's saying, yes, but if it is still controlled or dictated to or affected by your mental, emotional energies, that means your thoughts, okay? Chitta. If during dharana or dhyana you are in a state, but where you can still link to the thoughts and then you can still act or react to those thoughts, then he's saying this, you are not doing it right, basically. Even that, that's why he starts with tadapi, bahirangam nirbijasya. See, initially you have to sit and you have to practice, and you get to a stage where you have mastered that level of practice, or you sit and within minutes you're already, in that level. But at that level, you must slowly detach, not just from your surroundings, but you must detach from your thoughts, he's saying, right? You must not be motivated by any thought process. Simple as that, he's saying. The moment you are motivated by the thought process, from internal, you come back to external. And this is where the problem is. You, with so much of difficulty, you manage to sustain or suppress all the external attractions or distractions, and then you go internal. But internal, the thoughts that come, the attractive thoughts, the distractive thoughts, the destructive thoughts, and then you go back up. And this catapulting in and out is what he's talking about. Be careful, he's saying. Right? Now, verse 9 is quite important. Okay? Because he's saying, Vyuthana nirodha samskarayo abhibhava pradhurbhavo nirodha shana chitta anvaya nirodha parinamaha. What does this mean? He's saying Vyuthana. Vyuthana means the expression. Nirodha means to suppress something. Samskarayo means the mental impressions. Abhibhava means that which comes and goes, appear and disappear. Pradhurbhavo means that which manifests itself in different ways. Nirodha means to seize, where you can have that ability to restrain. Shana is very important, right? We're going to come back to shana. Is that momentary stoppage, okay? Chitta is, of course, your thoughts, your mental, emotional energies. Anvaya means connection. And parinamaha means that which has the effect of transforming, okay? So basically what it means is, when the connection with the mental, emotional energy, your thoughts, so let me use the word thoughts, right? Might be easier for people to understand. When the connection with your thoughts momentarily ceases, during the manifestation and disappearance phase, appearance and disappearance, when your thought momentarily ceases, when there is an expression or a suppression of any impression, that is the restraint which you should focus on in transforming your thoughts to thoughtlessness. Very nice. He's saying this. He's saying those, there are many types of yoga, and one of the yoga is Kriya Yoga, right? There are many Kriya Yogis. They don't actually reflect on their own Kriya Yoga practices because perhaps they are already at the stage where, they are already heading towards liberation, and they know it, and you will know it. Once you reach that stage, you will know where you're going, right? Now, I'll come back to that. One of the suttas we will do afterwards will tell you how at an advanced stage of yoga, you can even look at the past and the present because you are no longer connected to the physical thoughts. You are no longer in the physical plane of consciousness. Now, the whole idea is to go from conscious to subconscious state, and from subconscious to superconscious state. So once you reach the superconscious state, you are not bound by the boundaries of time and space. You are not bound by the boundaries of time and space. Very simple. Okay? Because when you are bound by time and space, you are affected by all the interchangeable energies. You are affected by psychological circumstances. You are affected by issues that relate to personal integrity. You are distracted by yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your communications. You're distracted by everything. But when you are not bound by time and space, you are above, floating. So you can go forward, you can go backward, you can stay in that same space, just hovering. That is why when the Siddhas go into this deep stage of meditation, very rarely they want to come out. So why would I leave something that gives me, nitya santosha, permanent happiness or permanent bliss or permanent contentment to come back to anitya anidhi, So it's very nice when you reach that stage and you can maintain that, shana. So here he's talking about shana. Sometimes, let me explain, right? Shana is, like I said, the expansion of an idea or the expulsion of the same idea. So appearance and disappearance. So the shana is that moment in between where you either move to expand the idea or you move to saying, this idea is useless, so I'm going to, get rid of it. I'm going to dispel it. I'm going to expel it. So here Patanjali is saying that shana, that interval between the expression of an idea in the mind, or whether you want to expand that idea, you want to suppress that idea. He says, don't express, don't expand, don't suppress. He said, stay in that moment and then extend that moment, shana, extend that shana longer and longer and longer and longer. And that is where the trick is. Don't jump. He said, the moment before you decide to jump into the jumping of the next idea, that space is the shana he's talking about. Of course, it's easier said than done because, it's split second, isn't it? The mind remains for a split second, sometimes 2-3 seconds, sometimes 5 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds. Sometimes people say, my mind went blank for a minute. That blankness is what Patanjali is referring to here as shana. In between the two, when you have that shanam, at that moment, at that instant, at that very minute, at that very second, you stay and you then expand that shana, that emptiness. And that is where you will find where you are going to go. Right? Prolonging that momentary blankness which occurs in the mind between one idea and the next. That is where. And sometimes yogis have spent months and years noticing this momentary blankness and then obviously focusing on it and then using it to their benefit, right? So he's saying use this in the same way. So don't forget, when you sit and meditate and you have that little moment of blankness, that is called shana. And that is where you should focus and hold that focus. You should hold that focus. Now, then in verse 10, he's saying, Tasya prasanta vahita samskara. Tasya means of this. Prashanta means, like we say prashanti. Prashanta means spiritual peace. Prashanti means the space of abode of peace. Vahita means flow. Prashanta vahita. Sanskarat means the impressions that you get from doing something or observing something. So concerning this practice of restraint, he's saying how you can restrain that shana, He says you should make use of the impressions that you derive that will cause a flow of spiritual peace. And when that spiritual peace descends, that momentary blankness can be extended or expanded. And this can only happen by repeated practices of mind conditioning or mind restraining. Otherwise, what did Shankara say? The mind is like not just a monkey, a drunk monkey, which has been stung by a scorpion and possessed by the devil. Shankara's words, right? So you have to cause this transformation of your thought process by controlling those very thoughts, by restraining them, and only then you'll get some peace. From that peace, you can jump into that blankness and extend and expand that blankness. That is what Shankara is saying as well in relation to the mind. I remember talking about the mind in much more detail when I did Bhajagovindam, and also when I did, obviously the other Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, and even on Upanishads and Puranas, 15 Upanishads, 18 Puranas. Also, I spoke about, how the only object of problem that man has is his own mind, right? If he can control his mind, there will be no problems, right? There will be no problems. Anyway, verse 11 is Maharishi Patanjali is saying, Sarva Thatha Ekagrathayo Shaya Udhaya Chittasya Samadhi Parinamaha. Here he's saying Sarvatha means that which changes. Sarva Atha changes. Ekagrathayo. Ekagrathayo means one aspect. Focus on that one before you go to another. Shaya means decrease. Otherwise, that attention span will decrease if you don't make it increase. Udhaya. Chittasya is your thought. Samadhi is, of course, being at a stage where you are balanced, not with the past, not with the present, not the future, but you're at balance with the time. Parinama means that which can change. So basically, he's saying the decrease of the varying objectives in your mental, emotional energy or your thoughts. Increase one aspect and decrease another aspect, and this will go on and on until you notice the change, and then you focus on stopping that change, and this continuous effort of doing this will link you to the higher concentration objects or forces or even people. This Ramana Maharishi once said, so that one person went to see him, and many times he went to see him, but he couldn't speak to him. But he was always sitting and waiting for an opportunity. Ramana Maharishi knew of his, as I said, when you are at that level of, vibrating at that higher level of consciousness, you can sense the presence of good energies, and you can equally sense the presence of bad energies, right? Going backwards, going forward, not going anywhere, you can see and sense all this. So he sensed the presence of this person, and a few times he sensed that same energy, right? Even though there are 10,000 people, you can feel 10,000 different sensations. That is the power of these energies, right? Anyway, so he called this person and he said, I know why you have come, but I want you to tell me why you have come. If my thoughts or your thoughts are at a certain sync, then I will tell you how to get over this. So he said, well, I meditate a lot. I get to a certain stage, and then I find that I cannot progress anymore. So I'm neither going forward, nor am I digressing. I'm just at that state. At least if I'm going back, falling down the scales, I know that something is happening, but nothing is happening. I am just reverberating at that state. I'm not going forward. I'm not going backward. So I just thought I will ask you. I thought you might have the answer. And Ramana Maharishi told him what to do, right? So this is what I mean. When you are at that certain level, sometimes you will meet certain forces, energy. Sometimes you will meet certain objects. I'm talking about that void space inside, right? That consciousness that takes you to the subconscious energies, right? And that subconscious energy will bring either a force or an object or a person, like the story I just told you with Ramana Maharishi. You will meet someone who will just push you, give you that little push, that little inertia, and then you will continue with your journey. So here is saying that, after a long practice at a certain level, the help will come. The help will come, right? But your focus, one-pointed devotion must be there. Whether it is a deity, a force, an object, or a person, help will come. This is why it's ekagratayo, one-pointed devotion in your act of merging, right, with the superconscious, that will attract something to come and push you in that direction. It has nothing to do with what you are or what you were, but once you reach that level, then you have the power to attract, right? So this is sometimes we say it is the battle within the psychology of the yogi for control of the psyche, right? Battlefield between mind and emotions, between thoughts and words, between actions and reactions. As I always say, you don't act, you don't react. You always learn to respond. And that is the sign of spiritual progress, response, not actions, not reactions. Going on to verse 12. Tatha punasaddha udithau tulya pratyayahu chittasya ekagratha parinamaha. Tatha means then. Puna santhatitau. Again, santhatitau means, santam, shanti is the same thing, right? In a state of settled sense of presence, or if you're tranquilized, when you say you're tranquilized, you don't feel anything, but you're conscious, but you don't feel anything, Udithau means again, tulya means that which is similar. Pratyaya means where you are becoming convicted, your belief, right? Chittasya is your thoughts. Ekagratha means what I said earlier, one-pointed devotion or one-pointed concentration or one-pointed focus that has the transforming energy. Okay. So in other words, the transliteration of this verse is, then again, tatha, then again, when the mind's content is the same as it was when it was subsiding or suppressing, or when it was growing, emerging, or expressing, then that is not as much transformation because you are still reacting and acting to the mind, right? So you're moving from one to the other, one to the other. Well, what he said earlier is when you move from one to the other, that moment of moveness, you stop there and you concentrate on that momentary blankness and then expand that slowly and slowly and slowly. So what you're doing is you are extending the thought process further and further and further away. And obviously, when there is no thought process, you're in a absent space, isn't it? He said in that absent space is what you should be trying to link with the higher energies, right? This is not a normal mind stage. This is a higher mind stage. That is why he says to get this mind stage, your pranayama must be correct. Your breathing. Last week I taught you some breathing, right? 1 to 4, right? So if you focus on your breathing, pranayama, pratyahara, then dharana and dhyana becomes easy, right? It's a stage by stage, Mind will gyrate in a certain way once you have that sense of control, Then in verse 13, he goes on. He says, Ethena bhutha indriyeshu dharma lakshanaha avastha parinamaha vyakyataha. Once you are aware of these changing qualities, changing shape, changing conditions, changing states of mind, then you are able to control those energies because you can see them. When you can see them, you can also stop them. You always have a choice, he's saying here. You always has a choice between the subtle and the gross energy, right? Subtle comes from gross. So if you don't know how to control the, if you don't know how to control the gross, you can't go into the subtle. Right? So he's saying the whole controlling effort has to come from within. From within. That's why he says dharana, dhyana is within. Whereas the others, yama, niyama, pranayama, asana, and pratyahara is physical. So manage the physical well enough so that when you go within, those physical attitudes do not come back and disturb you anymore. Right? When we learn how to control that response and how eventually to cease responding, then we get that control completely. Yeah. So controlling that is very important. Shantha udita avyapadesya dharma anupati dharmi. Dharma anupati dharmi. When the collapsed energy or the emergent energy comes, then that latent force in between the two reaches full retrogression. Retrogression. That is the most basic condition that people fall into these cyclical conditions. Right? Either you're collapsing, you're collapsing or you're emerging. And in between, this latent force is in full retrogression, cyclical. And this is mostly the basic condition that most people who go into yogasana experience, because they are still in the prakriti energy level, right? You have to nivritti that prakriti in order to go to the inner depths of your subconscious. And only from those inner depths you can lunge into the superconscious. And this is why he's saying most people, they do work so hard and then they get to the stage of dharana and then they fall back to pratyahara. So most of them get caught in the pratyahara dharana transition. And how to control that? How to come across, how to get across that? Always thinking, isn't it? From one thought to another thought, isn't it? Now, the idea is to stop that thought from going to another thought. So what do I want to do? The moment you ask what, you stop. Where, you stop. Why, you stop. And stop thinking. So that you don't allow yourself. I mean, physically, you have to attempt it first. Then only mentally it becomes a practice, a discipline. So the moment you dictate to your mind, it will stop. It's like a computer. Your mind is like a computer. You can dictate commands to it. Last time when I did Bhajagovindam, I said, Control or delete. That is your thoughts. Otherwise, your thoughts will bring you back. Thoughts will bring you back. Thoughts will bring you back. My friend, why are you meditating for so long? Come back. You got an appointment at 3. You have to do work. You have to submit this report. All these thoughts will bring you back. That's why after pranayama, only pratyahara comes. Once you regulate that breathing, basic breathing, I told you last week, 1, 2, 4, then it's easy for you to take control and then slowly stop this thinking, stop these thoughts, and you're fine, isn't it? In verse 15, he's saying, Karma anyatvam parinama anyatve hetu. The cause of a difference in the transformation is the difference in the sequential changes. What causes the sequential changes? Your thoughts. Going from one to the other, one to the other, one to the other, one to the other. Completely restless. So even as a student yogi or as a beginner, your thoughts may become preoccupied with various changing things inside, which occur when your chitta goes through numerous stages or numerous operations, some happy, some sad, some, no difference. So how do you get there? It's like a child. If you give it one toy, it will play with that one toy. If you give it so many toys, it will try and play with all the toys. And then it gets frustrated because it cannot get the joy of playing with all the toys to the same extent. And then it gets frustrated and then it cries. Then you take away all the toys and you give it one toy and it starts to play with that toy and it enjoys. But it knows there are other toys. So after a while, it doesn't want this toy, give me another toy. Then the same thing happens. This is precisely man, right? And his thoughts. So once there was, I'll tell you the story about this. This yogi was meditating under the tree, Siddha, and he sensed this energy of the ghost. So through his tantric knowledge and yantric knowledge and mantric knowledge, he managed to capture the ghost. The ghost was a very, of course, ghosts are, souls that have not yet attained peace, but they have some powers. They are neither human nor they, beyond that. So he put it in a jar and he said, okay, let me go to the town and see if I can sell this and then give the money to the ashram there. So he goes and he sits behind the tree, displaying this jar with that little ghost inside. People can see that ghost, moving up and down. So after some time, people knew that this guy is selling a ghost. So one rich man came. Of course, he has to market the ghost. So he says, this ghost is very powerful. It will do everything you say, right? Everything it will do. So you will have no problems. It is very, very talented and it can do numerous things at one time. So this rich man came and said, I have lots of businesses and all that. How much are you selling this ghost for? So the Siddha looked at him and he says, the same price for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. I want 500 gold coins for this. You want only 500 gold coins and you say this ghost can do many things, many things. Yes, the ghost can do everything. Then why is it 500 gold? See, the rich man is thinking like a businessman, right? He's thinking value per product, price-wise. But Siddha says he sees equanimity in it. Anyway, he says, yeah, it has a 99%, it is perfect, but it has got one flaw, right? So now the rich man is intrigued. He said, one flaw, what is that? He said, if you don't give it work, the moment it doesn't have work, it will eat up its owner. It will eat up its owner. Then the man, for a second, thought, look, I've got hundreds of businesses all over the town, this city, in another state, hundreds of businesses. I'm sure I can keep this guy occupied all the time. So, you see, sometimes when your mind wants something, another thought will come and say, don't worry, we can sort all that out. Just get it, just get it, just get it. It will not allow you to rationalize. That buyer remorse comes later. Buyer remorse means after you buy, you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't have bought, maybe I should have waited for a while, maybe I should have consulted, whatever. This is the same process. So the rich man said, 500 coins, here you go, now give it to me. So every day now of course the Siddha said, this is your new master and under the laws of, X, Y, Z, you have to obey him, right? So the ghost started doing things for him. He said, oh, do this, do that, do this, do that. But within a week, he had almost finished his work, And then every day he had to think of some things to do. And he was, finding it as the days were going very difficult. And then he started to get worried. Oh my God, if I don't give it work tomorrow, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Then he heard that, there was a new Rishi in town. And one of his friends told him, why don't you go and talk to that Rishi and see if your problem can be solved? So the rich man went, but he is still giving work to that ghost. He went to the Rishi, saw him, and he said, this is my problem. And the Rishi said, oh, it's not a big problem at all. It's only a small problem. He said, go and ask this ghost to find the longest bamboo in the world, right? And ask it to make sure the entire length of that bamboo goes down into the earth, and then ask the ghost to count how many nodes are there. Nodes, on a bamboo, there's a little, emergence of little nodes, like from top to bottom. And ask him to do that until you find something else for him to do. Then ask him to come back and start doing this again and again and again. So the man said, okay, is that all? He said, yeah. So he went. When he gave work, the ghost used to do it. When he didn't have work, he told the ghost, okay, now you climb up and down, counting how many nodes are there until I say stop. Okay. So what happened was, another rishi came to town and called this man. He said, have you managed to control your the ghost? Man said, yes. And then he was gone. But the moral of the story is, the ghost is none other than your mind. If your mind does not, or has not been kept in, has not been curbed, curtailed, or controlled, then it will be like this ghost who will eat up the owner. Eat up the owner means it eat you up with thoughts, with desires, with all kinds of things, unless you keep it on the straight and narrow. That's why I said to you earlier, Shankara said the mind is likened to a monkey, but not just any monkey. This is a drunk monkey that has been bitten by a Scorpio and that has been possessed by the devil. Now, how much more difficult it is. We just say monkey mind is difficult. Now, can you imagine a monkey that is drunk, bitten by the scorpion, and also possessed by the devil? So this is why he's saying, the moment you keep jumping from, one transformation of thought to another, and you are following the sequential changes, even though you're in a state of meditation, then you're not going to progress. And that is what, the story is supposed to tell you. Parinamatraya samyamat atitha anagata jnanam. Parinama means that which can change, right? That which can transform. Traya, as I said to you, is three or threefold. Samyamat means what I said to you last week, samyamat, complete restraint of the thoughts. Atita, past. Anagata, future. Jnanam is information or knowledge or wisdom. From the complete restraint of your thoughts, right, in terms of transformation and sequential changes, the yogi gets information about the past and the future. Wow, fantastic. So here he's saying, this is one of the skills that you will get once you become at that level of competence, right? After continuous practice, then you perfect certain siddhis, siddhic powers, these are called siddhi. Siddhi you get from buddhi, right? That's why when you worship Ganesha, there's one aspect of Ganesha called Siddhi Vinayaka. Siddhi Vinayaka, you pray to only when your Buddhi Vinayaka is aroused. And that Buddhi will give you that Siddhi. Okay, Buddhi is intellect. Siddhi is the powers that you get as a result of sharpened intellect. So he's saying here, once you get to that level where you are able to completely restrain, this is a state of samyama. Remember, I spoke about this last week. Samyama means complete restraint from all thoughts. This is the mental blankness, that mind blankness, that shama, that shana I was talking about earlier, shana, that period, that point, that space. If you are completely at peace at that space, that means you're not going further in thoughts, not going backward in thoughts. This point, if you become competent enough, you can see past and future already. That means the next stage is samadhi, right? This is what Krishna told Arjuna in Kurukshetra, right? and he's talking about Dhyana Yoga, one of the books, chapter 4. He says, Arjuna, I can remember every single birth of mine. Many births have transpired, yet I can remember each one of them because I am a yogi, right? So I'm teaching you this yogi, and Arjuna was able to see, certain things because he followed what Krishna said, and he also mastered this yoga siddha. But what happened after the war, he forgot it because he was no longer practicing it. You see, we are in many ways like this, isn't it? When we want something, we do everything to procure it. Once we've got that thing, we don't practice to keep it or sustain it, and then after some time we lose it. So when he couldn't recall it, he went back to Krishna and said, can you teach me again? And Krishna said, no. Krishna said, no. Yoga is only taught once, and when I know you've mastered it, it is entirely your responsibility to keep that sustained energy. You cannot forget and come back to your guru. Cannot forget and come back to your guru. This is when he said, because I have mastered that yoga siddha, I can recall every single birth of mine. And you also can, Arjuna, but you do not remember because you have not mastered that siddha. You keep going back to your stage of pratyahara. When you're already in the stage of dharana, you should go into dhyana, and then you will reach samadhi. So Arjuna, even though he knew, he forgot, he still could not get to the next stage because of his connection with earthly matters, materialistic matters, prakriti. If you're so entrenched in prakriti, you'll find it difficult, right? So letting go is something very, very hard for many people. So you have to let go at some point. And that's why there's a famous expression, isn't it? Let go and let God. If you don't let go, God cannot come in. Yes. Even Swami says, you come to me, come with empty hands so I can give something. If you come with your full hands, I can't give you anything because even if I give, you can't hold it. It will drop or it will spill. That is talking about mind. Empty hand is empty mind. So empty your mind of all preconceptions, of any misconceptions, right? And go with an empty state so that you can fill it in. Verse 17, he's saying, Shabdhartha pratyayanam itaretaraha adhyasat shankara tat pravibhaga samyamat sarvabhuta rutha jnanam. Right? Basically, he's saying, Shabda means Shabda, sound. Shabda, Nada Brahman, Shabda Brahman, right? Sound. Artha, sound, meaning. Artha means meaning. Pratyayanam means pertaining to the mind. Our sense of conviction, ideas, if you like. Itaratara means one for the other. You get one, then you give up another. Adhyasat means imposition or superimposition. So if you get a small object and if you get a bigger object, that bigger objects will completely obscure the smaller object, regardless of how powerful that smaller object is or how valuable that smaller object is. So your thoughts are like that, he's saying, right? Adhyasat, imposition, superimposition. Shankara means mixture. Tat means that. Pravibhaga means differentiation or classifying things, or some where there is not so much clarity because of these differentiations. Samyamat means, as I said, complete restraint. Sarvabhuta means everything. Rutha means sound as well. And jnanam, of course, is knowledge. So this basically means from the complete restraint of your mental, emotional energy, your thoughts, in relation to mental clarity, regarding the intermixture from the superimposition of all your thoughts, all the sounds, all the meaning, all the mental energies, knowledge about the language of all these energies is gained. Because slowly you will begin to realize, this energy is giving me this feeling. That energy is giving me this sensation. This energy is making me think like this. So you will begin to realize what these energies are, and then you'll be able to control them with practice, right? It's like sorting things out, filing them, compartmentalizing them. So he says, and so all these energies will come and disturb you at that level. You compartmentalize them, and then you deal with one after the other. Yeah? Pratyayanam means one after the other, isn't it? So that is quite 17, right? Then in 18, he said, Sanskara Sakshat Karana Purvajati Jnanam. Sanskara means the subtle impressions that are stored in your mind. Sanskara. Sakshat Karanat means, how can I put it? Sakshat Karana, direct, intuitive perception, what you see. Sakshat, exactly what I saw, what I imagined has come. Sakshat Karanat. Purva means before. Jati means your status, your state of being. Jnana means knowledge. Individual meaning, but in a sentence, what they mean is from direct intuitive perception of the subtle impressions stored in the memory, the yogi can go back to his previous life. From direct intuitive perception of the subtle impressions stored in the memory, the yogi can go back to past lives. And indeed, he can also jump to the present. And not just of his own. Not just of his own. That means they can also tell about others. What is your past life? What is where you are, or where you were, where you are, and where you will be. Right? This is what we mean by sanskara sakshat karanat, by direct intuitive perception, where your buddhi is purified. That means it cannot go into any other stage. It is one stage, and that stage is stage of competent thinking, right thinking. Right? Verse 19 is pratyayasya parachitta jnanam. Parachitta jnanam. Pratyayasya means of the mind's content. Content means what is inside. Para, others. Chitta, thoughts. Jnanam, information. Okay, that means a yogi can know the contents of the mental and emotional energy in the mind of others when he has controlled that in his own mind. Very simple. You cannot give what you don't have, and what you haven't controlled, you cannot control for others. What you have controlled yourself, you can tell others how to control. And that level, you can go and see your own past and present and future. You can also do that for others. But you cannot interfere with karma. So again, that is a discipline that yogis should have. They will not change your path. They will not tell you, oh, this is going to happen. This is, do this, do that. It is not their job to tell you. That's why sometimes it's a discretion. They choose not to tell you because they know you cannot deal with it. But they will say, okay, go to temple, maybe on Saturdays, go and, they tell you many things, isn't it? It gives you something to do. Right? It tells you psychologically that you are addressing a problem. Right? This is a type of placebo, if you like, placebo therapy, which works fantastically as far as the mental emotional energy is concerned, right? Placebo therapy. A man once went to a doctor and he said, "Doctor, I think I'm dying. I think I have some disease." The doctor does all the tests, and he says, "No, you don't have any signs or symptoms. Chemically, there's nothing wrong with you, so you shouldn't have." The guy keeps coming back every week with the same thing. So once the doctor did all the tests, he knew there was nothing wrong with him. But he said, "Yes, I found something. This is a condition." And he made up a condition. And he said, "But I've got the medication for you, right?" So he takes a tablet, all of those caplets, right? And he fills it with some sugar powder. So he fills it and he says, I'm just going to give you for 1 week. And you should slowly feel that, you're getting better and better. If 1 week it doesn't come, then come back. I will give you something even more stronger. But this should do the trick. But do not miss any dose. It's 3 doses a day for 7 days completely. This is the times you should take it. And you should not miss the time as well. So he gave him 3 tablets a day times 7, 21 tablets. He said, this time, every day at this time. A week later, the guy came back and said, Doctor, I'm not going through those symptoms anymore. I think I'm cured. Well done. Good. Then he told this to another doctor, another friend of his. So what did you give him? He said, nothing. I just put some sweet powder into the caplets, made 21 of them, told my nurse to do it and gave it to him. Placebo therapy. So it is not for you to, as at that level of competence as a yogi, you cannot get involved by telling people this was your past, this is your present, but how to avoid this, how to avoid that. He says, because that is the job for Adi yogis like Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, those kind of people. Adi yogis, not this. And he says, Na chatat salambhanam tasya aviyasya bhutatvat. Na chatat salambhanam tasya avisai bhutatvat. Means he does not check whether he is at that level, because when he is at that level, he knows as a matter of fact, and therefore he doesn't question anything as to whether he has attained a certain level. That comes as a realization. That is why you say he is a realized person, she is a realized soul, that yogi is a realized person, like that, right? So the advanced powers of a yogi is directly reflective of his own intuitional powers. And the accuracy of these intuitional powers is as a result of focused dharana and dhyana, which takes him into that level, right? And they can choose whether they want to go into samadhi or not. That is what some people have, like Raghavendra. He chose his time. Shankara chose his time. All these great yogis who did meditation, Ramana Maharshi, all these people, they chose their time when they wanted to go. Even the great Pitama in, when we did Bhagavad Gita, I told you when he chose his time. That's one of the reasons why you celebrate this Uttarayan, in the changing of the sun, 6 months northward. That's the time he said, I will go, because that is the time because he was also an advanced yogi, Bhishma Acharya, Pitama. And he knew at that point there is no rebirth for him, right? So yogis know what is going to happen, what has happened, and what is happening. That is why many go into these signs of yoga. But the problem is they go there and they are not able to sustain that fantastic energy. Sometimes you're not prepared. That is why there is this Ashtanga stages. Ashtanga stage, 7 or 8 parts before you reach that. And each part has to be controlled to perfectness. Then you can go to the next, then you go to the next, then you go to the next. Just sitting in meditation for 15 years without controlling your emotions, without having moral, righteous values, without having spiritual discipline, without breathing properly, without sitting in a good posture, without focus, concentration, without meditation, how can you reach? This is the problem, right? So last week I taught you a mudra. This week I'm going to talk about something called Anjali Mudra. Anjali Mudra is sometimes known as Namaste Mudra. Namaste, you do Namaste like this, just like that, right? Hold it in your heart, the heart chakra, right? And you can say Namaste, Namaskar, or Sai Ram, or, Hari Om, or Om Tat Sat. This can also be used to meditate, right? From your heart chakra, you can meditate like that, right? But when you put, it must be pointing directly towards the chin, the middle here, right? This is a powerful mantra because it is a gesture of gratitude. symbol of gratitude. And when you put it at your heart, it is saying, I recognize the same presence of divinity in yourself, and let both our divinities acknowledge each other's presence. The light in me acknowledges the light in you. You are the light, as am I. That light is the light of knowledge. So the more you practice this, the more it contributes to your knowledge. Anjali Mutra. Anjali, as you know, is giving credence, right? By saying nice things or by worshipping. So we have this thing called Pushpanjali. So by offering flowers, you are praying to God like that. Okay, so that is week 10. Next week, we go into week 11 and we look at another 14 or 15 verses. But today is also a very, very auspicious day. My day began very early at 5 a.m. and I do this Abhishekam and all for Lord Subramanya. Thaipusam is a big thing in India, specifically in Malaysia. It's a big thing, and in many states, even the UK, some temples also observe this. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes to talk about the significance of this festival called Thaipusam. Thai is the month, Pusam is the nakshatra of the day. Pushya nakshatra, Magamasa, or Thai Masa. And in Tamil, it's called Thai. Basically, it is a festival for Lord Muruga, Lord Subramanya, right? And it is to recognize his, conquests of beating, different Rakshasas, Taragasura Samharini Namaha, one of his names. But I want to talk not so much about the form of Murugan, but his weapon called the lance, or we call veil. So, whenever you sing a song for Lord Muruga, you'll always have veil. Veil, veil, Muruga, victory, veil, Muruga, right? So veil has got many pre-qualifications, like Vetri veil, Veera veil, Jnana veil, Skanda veil, Shakti veil, like that. So I'm going to talk about the veil. Now, if you take the shape of the veil, it is sharp, and then it is like a circular shape. It goes down, and then the sharp pointed long stance. So at the top, it is like a spade, like a spade with pointed sharpness. So you can use it as a weapon. So basically, that sharp end at the top, at the tip, is sharpness of the intellect. So whenever you pray to Lord Muruga, say, make me like your lance, your spear, that I have such sharp intellect. And then the part where the spade broadens up before it joins to form the long stem, that is broad-mindedness, lateral thinking. So when you pray to Lord Muruga, you pray that he grants you broad-mindedness and lateral thinking, that aptitude that will give you that attitude. That will take you to spiritual altitude. And then, of course, that long stem, again, which is sharp at the bottom, is the depth of character. So simple thing like a veil can be so significantly descriptive. Sharp intellect, broad-mindedness, lateral thinking, and a depth of character that is solid. That means you have controlled the 3 types of gunas, right? Not rajasic, not tamasic, but a balanced sattvika guna. So that is how you should pray to the veil, or Murugan's, lance, which he uses to kill. Killing, basically, in a Puranic sense, you have a Rakshasa, which is bad, which is evil, which is negative, and you use this positive energy to kill the negative. So in the same way, you use the veil with your intelligence, with your broad-mindedness, with your depth of character, strength of character, to kill all the negative energies. Simple as that. As practicalizing, spiritual teachings for a practically rewarding life. Simple as that. Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha asmat karunya bhavena raksha raksha sarveshwaraha. Hari Om Tat Sat.